Oshiya, I'm excited to see you in sunny Las Vegas and chat a little bit about your career and what you're up to now. To start with, can you give us a little bit of a sense about what Maesa is about, what its kind of core principles are,
Yeah.
and why you are excited to be there?
So, what is so unique about Mesa is that we are an incubator and an operator of beauty brands. There isn't anyone like us
That's
in the
right.
marketplace today
That's right.
because either you have large scale CPGs who only do operations of their $1 billion of very large enterprise brands,
Yeah.
or you have incubators that are fast and nimble but are one off category experts or are not able to scale their brands.
Yeah.
Right? And these days, particularly, it's so easy to launch a brand, right? Especially a beauty brand, but it is so hard still to scale it. So
To the point.
right. So the
Yes.
industry average of success in terms of scaling a brand is truly 1 out of 10. And for Mesa, it's 2 out of 3. And most recently, it's been 3 out of 3.
So,
Right?
so why? So why?
Yeah.
What's the special secret sauce?
I couldn't give you all of it.
Yeah.
but the big principles are, and I would splice it into like 3 big pillars, if you will. One is this whole notion around finding the white space, just
Yeah.
knowing your consumer deep down, constantly watching trends, being beauty junkies in a way.
Yeah.
But not just that, really looking at life from a consumer or people perspective rather than a marketer perspective. So really macro, micro trends and a lot of things around earned gut and saying, okay, here is where we're going to place our bets. Here is what we think is going to blow up over the next 5 to 10 year horizon, right? So there is
love that.
this notion
Big
around
bets.
white space, consumer insight, all of that good stuff. Second aspect is around the commerciality of it, which is retailers' partnership. How we go to market is oftentimes we find ourselves an exclusive retailer partner
Yep.
with whom we'll go in the kitchen and we'll build a brand with them, right? So they are also watching the trends and
Yep.
they're reading the consumer data and they have far greater access to data, right?
Yep.
So when we come to them with these trends, this product assortment, this consumer insight, they're able to layer on their retailer perspective, their insights, their point of sale disruption, and so on. So then we're able to do that. And then within that is the whole aspect around demand generation, brand heat. We can talk a ton about just how we go to market at Mesa, which is very different from a typical CPG company.
Yep.
And the last aspect is this ability to scale up and down our supply chain operations, right? And which is where oftentimes the younger startups or incubators are not able to scale up their operations in the way that a large CPG would require. So we have the ability to scale up when something goes viral, something we know has traction, has way past the minimum viable revenue, right? And so we're able to drive that. But also, equally, when something does fail, we're able to pull back fast and come out of it in a very asset-light, fast way in terms of managing that, right? So those are the 3 core pillars of what makes us us.
If I think of what makes a successful company in today's world, those are 3 core pillars. So it's impressive that you've brought all 3 together as a company.
Yeah.
And I actually really like the point you make about partnering with the retailers around the brand and the product and the operations. I think that's so interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think bigger enterprises look at their retail customers very much as a customer and what that means versus a partner. So I think you've got really some strengths there that others should think about. That's great.
Thank you.
Yes. Now let's talk a little bit about you. I think you have such an impressive career that you have built over time. I hope we can take a couple minutes, and I don't want you to feel embarrassed, but tell us a little bit how you've been able to achieve this remarkable career that you've put in place.
Thank you so much, first of all, for that acknowledgement.
Yeah.
So I grew up in India.
Yes.
I started my career at Hindustan Lever straight out of business school, which is the India arm of Unilever. It's a huge company for us, for them globally still, and remains so, right? And what I loved about the leadership development at Unilever when I was very young is that they forced the marketers to switch lanes. You start in sales, then you go into brand development, then you do brand building, and then you live ideally in different parts of the country or the world. And that just opens up your mind frame in a way that just makes you a global thinker, a much more flexible thinker, if you will.
I like that.
So when I moved to the US, I found that actually it was the opposite of talent development here, which was that you became subject matter experts, right? And it was really it was very positive if you had spent over 10 years in something and you had really claimed your fame within that, and then that becomes sort of the next 10 years of your life.
Yeah.
I kind of did not want to do that. I just wanted to stay true to swim lanes and switching the swim lanes.
Yes.
And so for me, all of my career last 15 years, so I moved to the US in 2010. So last 15 years was just plotting that ability to switch the swim lanes. And as you can imagine, it wasn't easy because that is the opposite of talent development here. But when you say no to me, I hear a yes and I go for it.
So. Can you elaborate a little bit? Because I think one of the hardest things to do is move out of being pigeonholed, right? Especially in the interviewing process, because you have so many candidates that want to have this position who are highly qualified.
Yes.
How does someone pick you when you're going up against qualified candidates?
Yeah. It's an answer which is probably not going to be the most popular answer, but you kind of have to start doing the job that you want in a way. So I would be the person who'd always be the first one to take that extra project, find my way into the other side, network externally and internally to find that extra role. And that if that meant I had 2 jobs at one given point in time, I was willing to do that. So now a lot of people may not be willing to do that, right? But that's how I was able to make those moves, because it isn't easy. To move lanes, because to your point, people pigeonhole you, and that's where you're supposed to stay, because that is how the talent is developed in the US, right? But for me, it was very important that when I do become a chief marketing officer, that I don't find that I have only built one muscle. When actually in today's day and age, marketing is just so rapidly evolving and so fluid. Every day something's changing. So if you haven't seen all of it in younger formative years when you're actually building stuff, right, you haven't deeply understood what the connecting of the dots happen, right? So, and you've been in AI space, and like now, if you jump into it, I'm sure it's a scary space to be, but you've been there when it was all starting. So you can zoom in, zoom out easily. And for me, that is now gives me the strength to be a smart CMO, is that I'm able to zoom in, zoom out so fast. I've done brand development, product development, global marketing. I've lived in 5 different countries. I've done brand operations, brand marketing, P&L, e-commerce, digital marketing, Amazon media.
That is phenomenal.
Creative. And now at Maesa, I get to do all of it because I have 4 departments under me. Creative studio, innovation teams, our blue sky teams, our brand marketing teams, our integrated marketing teams, which is all of influencer, press, and media. So and it's easy for me to zoom in, zoom out, think about the brand, the portfolio, because I've done portfolio management, but then go very linear into a brand P&L and say, well, this is what we need to fix, and then go into saying, okay, what kind of brand marketing model do we want to build? Is it paid first, earn first, own first? Like, where are we going to go with this, right? And not to mention that, I've worked in prestige categories. I have worked in mass
whole new dimension there,
a whole new dimension there, right? And I've done that, and I've done pretty much every beauty and personal care category at this point in time. So Maesa just felt so right. It was prestige price points within mass, so it's masstige. It is any category we see there's a white space we want to go disrupt. We're able to do that. Is, as I already mentioned, I have 4 different departments. I'm able to go in and out from a very creative mindset into a P&L gross margin conversation seamlessly, right? So I think that just prepared me so well for the Maesa role. And part of the reason why I took the role was because it just was going to be such a test of the comprehensive learning that I'd had in my career.
That's fantastic. I think the nugget that I've taken away from this, and I hope our viewers do, is the power of curiosity as well, right? That our whole lives, our families have wanted us to be curious in our younger formative years. But sometimes that curiosity gets tightened a little bit in our careers. And for you, it sounds like it was the opposite, right? Where you wanted to learn as much as you can across as many opportunities that come forward. So I love that. You talked about overseeing 4 departments. And when I think about that, and you mentioned operations, you mentioned the brand, right? As well as marketing. I think that's a very modern approach to running a business. You can't, I don't think, separate now anymore the brand from operations and from the commercial components too. And so can you talk to us a little bit about that? What's your advice to brand marketers out there who understand they need to be in the operations world, but they aren't? How can we help them get there?
I think for us at Mesa, we are within me, right? Like there is the Blue Sky teams, which is all of our innovation initiatives and brand marketing, integrated marketing, and creative. Oftentimes in companies, those two end up being two separate departments, right? There's the developers, and then there are the marketing operators, right? So right off the bat, that silo is gone because everybody just reports into me, so we're able to make decisions fast, resolve conflict, if you will, super fast, right? Because oftentimes what happens is when you have so many department heads, the silos become real, and the bigger the company, the bigger the egos. So it's hard to sometimes navigate that. Then you add on your chief commercial officer, which is your sales and your retailer lens, and then you have your chief operations officer, right? And then for us at Mesa, we're a very intimate, small LT that sort of runs it. So when there is a problem, when there is an issue, we are able to pick up the phone and talk to each other. And that sort of then helps us sort of bring all of our superpowers, right? Me as a marketer, my chief commercial officer as her commerce side of it, our COO who's like a veteran P&G'er, right?
That's great.
But is nimble, right? Is fast and is able to change his supply chain methodologies up and down, depending on the needs of the marketing and the sales organization. So that's how, like, I think it's the breaking down the silos across the departments is really helps Mesa as well.
I love that. I think about today's world from the perspective of the consumer is that there is a pervasive store. They can buy whenever, wherever. And it always, when I was growing up, it was always a strategy we aspired to be, but now it's a reality. And so as you integrate that brand and the commercial side and the operations side, and you incubate brands and you manage brands accordingly, I think that's very strong. So I'm very impressed by how you all are working this through, and it feels very innovative. One last question for you, since we are here around innovation. Can you talk to us about what's one thing we can do in our work environment and give it a tight timing of over 6 months, something realistic we can do to help drive innovation across the brands that we work on?
Right. I don't know if it's a very specific answer over the 6-month horizon, but what I would say is very important as marketers and business leaders. The world is such a volatile space right now, right? My CEO often calls it the VUCA world, right? It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, right? And yet, as he reminds us, this is the easiest it's going to be, because with every year, it's only going to get worse.
Love that.
Right? So whilst change is at the highest right now, it's still the lowest it's going to be over the years to come. And I'm like, true.
It's just going to go.
It's just only going to get harder and harder. And so I think the one thing that I remind myself every day is that while it's important to have common sense, right? All the things we've learned over the last 15, 20 years of our careers, we have our frameworks, we have our ways of assessing things, but there needs to be a fair dose of flexibility and pivot plans in everything we're doing, right? Like you cannot have a rigid way. This is how we've always done it. Therefore, this is how we're going to do it. No, the world around you is changing faster than you as a human being can comprehend. Right? So if you are not keeping up with the times and keeping a flexible mindset and be able to pivot fast as things are happening, you're going to be left behind. So whether that's innovation for product, or that's innovation from a marketing lens, or whether that's innovation from supply chain perspective, like everybody has to be an innovator in everything that we're doing. So we speak of us as, how do we become the next generation beauty company? Like, how do we really challenge everything that we know, right? Innovate in every aspect of how we go to market.
I love that. And there's a little bit of a fail fast culture to that, right? Which is, if you don't try, you're paralyzed. And ultimately you don't succeed, but you have to try. And you have to be brave enough to try. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful pleasure to get to know you a bit and hear about your career.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.